Hey guys, welcome to the Field of 68 YouTube channel. If you like what you see here, hit that subscribe button and you'll get more college basketball content just like this. Pope played for the Wildcats from 1994 to 1996, and he has been the head coach at BYU since 2019. And uh, the way that this kind of played out is something that I don't think a lot of people necessarily expected, right? Um, Kentucky's athletic director, Mitch Barnhart, went after Scott Drew. He went after Dan Hurley. He went after Nate Oates. Nate Oates was the first one that he went after John Calipari left for Arkansas. And then to last night, he went after Scott Drew, was told no this morning. This afternoon, he went after Dan Hurley, was told no again. And then this evening, he ended up on Mark Pope. The way that Goodman phrased it, who could not be here because he is currently attending a wedding for his nephew. If you want to know what it's like to be married to Jeff Goodman, he was on his phone breaking news of the Kentucky coaching hire while he's at a wedding for a family member. So always fun when that happens after the season's over. But as Goodman put it, 15 years ago, Mitch Barnhart was persuaded to go after somebody that came with a little bit of baggage, right? That had some kind of issues in his past that maybe he had to look past if he's going to hire him to be the head coach at Kentucky. That was John Calipari. Obviously, Calipari had the NCAA stuff going on from his time at Memphis. And this time around, Mitch Barnhart decided he didn't want to go with Bruce Pearl. He didn't want to go with Chris Beard. He didn't want to wait out Billy Donovan, considering that a week from now could change the landscape of who is potentially available, giving what is open, what is currently available in the transfer portal. So he went with BYU head coach Mark Pope, who, for the record, has been a good coach, the solid to a good coach at BYU over the years. I'm going to talk about his resume here. In a couple minutes. I don't want to dive into that just yet. I do want to say that I was able to catch up with Mark Pope at the Final Four. He came on one of our live streams and he came on one of our live shows. And one of the conversations that we kind of ended up on was discussing how he balanced the idea of being a Kentucky alum and being a very proud Kentucky alum with being the head coach at a program that at some point would likely end up having to play Kentucky. And I think that if you go back and listen to the interview, we just posted on YouTube. You can find it on our YouTube channel. You could also find it on the Field of 68's Twitter account. What he basically said was that Kentucky is always going to hold a very, very special place in his heart. And you could just hear him in speaking and understand that the opportunity to maybe one day coach the University of Kentucky would be something that would be very, very appealing to him. He spent 2 years with them. He was part of the 1996 national championship team that a lot of people consider to be the greatest college basketball team of all time. He was one of 9 NBA players on that roster, and now he is back in Lexington for the first time professionally, expected to be back in Lexington for the first time professionally as the next head coach of the University of Kentucky Wildcats, which is an incredible climb up the coaching ladder if you kind of look at where he was 2 years ago, right? In 2023, he was sitting at 19-15 overall. He was 7-9 in the WCC, which was good for a 5th place finish behind the likes of Santa Clara and Loyola Marymount in the WCC title race. He has won, I believe, just one regular season title in his tenure as the head coach at any of the programs that he's been at. And no, you know what? He hasn't won any regular season titles as a head coach at the Division I level. But I think that if you look kind of big picture on what he's been able to accomplish, but before we talk about what he actually is as a coach, I think if you look at what he's been able to accomplish since he's been there, in the last 5 seasons at BYU, 3 of the 5 years he's finished higher than John Calipari has in Ken Palm's adjusted efficiency rankings. He's had 3 top 20 teams in Ken Palm as the head coach at BYU. Last year, he managed the transition from the WCC to the Big 12 about as well as you could possibly imagine. He finished as the number 18 team in Ken Palm. He finished as the 6th seed, and he won 23 games and went 10-8 in the Big 12. Good for 6th place and tied in that conference with none other than Bill Self and the Kansas Jayhawks. I understand why there might be some hesitancy from Kentucky fans when it comes to this hire. But I do think that it's important to note a couple things. One, Pope throughout his tenure has been a guy that has been a little bit more analytically driven and a little bit more quick to embrace the concepts of modern basketball, right? Like he's a guy that is going to run offenses that are spread out. This past season at BYU, he reinstalled an offense that was new and unique and involved quite a bit of 3-point attempts and was kind of built around this idea of pace and space and really embraced the idea of having big guys that are versatile and having playmakers at the 4 and the 5 spots and being able to get quick actions that will allow you to get open 3-pointers. They run a lot of stuff through Zoom and Zoom actions, not Zoom, the streaming and conversational service, but it is something where I think that he is more of a modern basketball mind than a lot of people are going to realize, right? There's a little bit of, to me, like a Greg McDermott kind of a vibe here. I think a lot of what he runs will be a little bit similar to, not quite at the same level of sophistication and complex sets as Dan Hurley, but it's not all that dissimilar from what both of those guys are going to try to do. So offensively, I think from a basketball standpoint, I think that he's going to be just fine. Like I think he's going to be able to run the stuff that he needs to run. I think he's going to be able to get the players that he has in the positions that they need to be able to be in, And the way I think about it is this: in 6 of the last 7 years, he's won at least 20 games. The year that he didn't win 20 games, he won 19 games, and in none of those 7 seasons was he had a program where he was a top 2 job in the league. And I would argue that Gonzaga and St. Mary's, while he was there, were the 2 best jobs in the WCC. And Utah Valley was in the WAC at the same time that New Mexico State and Grand Canyon were in the WAC. So he's found a way to be able to win at a place where it's maybe not necessarily the best job that he is going to have. And I still would have gone pretty, if I was Kentucky's AD, if I was Mitch Barnhart, I still would have gone pretty heavily after Bruce Pearl, Chris Beard, Sean Miller. I probably would have tried to wait it out to see if I could get Billy Donovan before I ended up on Mark Pope. But I said it today on Twitter in a thread that I think that if Mark Pope was your safety net, you had a pretty you're in a pretty good situation, and that's a pretty good place to end up being. It's not the best, it's not the necessarily the higher that you're going to want to go to in the first place, but I don't think that this absolute catastrophe that a lot of people are painting it out to be. Now, for me, the biggest thing is going to be dealing with him dealing with being at a higher level and whether or not he's going to be able to get guys in, right? Um, I think that the basketball side of it will play itself out pretty well. Like he knows what he's doing. He runs modern principles of basketball. He adjusted teams adjusted the way that he played the last 2 or 3 seasons based off of the specific roster build that he has. Now, I think the biggest thing is going to be whether or not like he can get the players that he needs to get. But I do think that at the end of the day, right, it's Kentucky. I don't think you need to be John Calipari to be able to get kids to go to Kentucky. I don't think that you need to be the best recruiter in the world to get kids to be able to go to Kentucky, especially in a day and age where they're worried about this. Money talks, right? Not that it didn't happen before, but now it's much more above board. And as long as he has the resources that he needs to be able to function in the modern space, it's something where I think that he's going to be able to have the chance to get the guys that he needs to be able to get. I also don't think he's going to be someone that sits here and absolutely 100% prioritizes nothing but the best 5 stars in college basketball. And one of the things that I've heard over and over again from Kentucky fans when it comes to complaints about Coach Cal is twofold, right? Number one, it's the stuff that he runs. He's running old school offenses. He's running defenses and playing with the style that is based on something that was successful 10, 15, 20 years ago, before we understood the analytics of and the value of shooting threes, before we kind of understood the modern efficiency metrics and the ways that basketball has kind of been solved. And frankly, basketball has kind of been solved a little bit to a point here. So I think that Mark Pope absolutely 100% understands that. Anybody that watched his teams play this season can absolutely 100% understand that. He knows, and he told us this, that when he went to the Big 12, he was going to have to play a different style to be able to make it work with a team like BYU playing in the Big 12. He is a smart dude that understands basketball, and that's something, and understands modern basketball, and that's something that Kentucky fans had complained about quite a bit. The other thing that I hear Kentucky fans frustrated with is this idea that Coach Cal put together a program that celebrated guys getting to the NBA and having success more than they celebrated players coming to Kentucky and having success. Thank you for watching the Field of 68. If you've enjoyed what you've seen here, hit that like button, share this link with your friends, or check out the description for some other places that you can consume Field of 68 content.